Hi, Siling. How are you, man? Siling?
Hi, Richard. How are you? I'm good, thanks.
He's working from home. I think it's more stressful to work from home. Yeah.
I agree.
So,
Certain things
yeah,
we don't realize.
yeah, exactly. You're right. Yeah. So we have this webinar coming up on Saturday at 11 a.m. Malaysian time, and I think the topic is called Introduction to Neurolaw. I must say it's really, really interesting, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
looking forward to interview you this Saturday. But quite a number of my friends have been inquiring, um, what's Neurolaw? So maybe I thought that's why I invited you over today for this very quick preview. Maybe you can share some previews about what Neurolaw is about. All yours, Celine.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Richard. Yeah, I think that's totally understandable. I think neuroscience itself is still relatively quite new. I would say how psychology was 20 years ago is where neuroscience is right now. So maybe I'll just start by just giving you an outline of neuroscience. So neuroscience is essentially the interdisciplinary study of the brain. So you can imagine that it can really feed into many different areas in the sciences, but I think what's exciting now is that it's also finding its way and making forays into other areas which you don't think could pair very well. So, for example, neurolaw, right? Because
Mm,
neuroscience is a science and law is an art. So, when you put neuroscience and law together, essentially it's really all about how neuroscience findings can inform law.
interesting. Basically, there will be an element of scientific study, and I suppose um, in my personal reading, there's a fair bit of reading to understand how our brains work. You know, I'm trying to make it simple for the viewers, right? It's and then how it relates to law. Am I on the right track so far?
Yeah. That sounds all good. Yeah, I think to simplify it, I think when you think about law, essentially, it's about governing human behavior. It's governing
Mm,
society, and in order to do that effectively, I think you need to have a good understanding on how people behave. And when you talk about human behavior, obviously, it all originates in the brain. So
mm,
I think if you go back to that link or that root and essentially look back into the brain, and especially now because we are really having all these really exciting technologies that has enabled us to look at the living brain, something that was really not possible 2 decades ago.
mm,
This really brings up a whole explosion of avenues and findings that law may not even think was possible a few decades ago.
interesting.
So to that go ahead.
No, I was just saying interesting. Listening to you, I'm already quite I'm quite excited to interview you on Saturday. Yeah, looking forward to it. Yeah, go on, go on. You want to just wrap up what you want to say? Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm also really excited, and essentially, I'm also thinking of this Saturday's session as more of a dialogue. I think not like a one-way sort of seminar, but a dialogue, and also seeing how law is in Malaysia, because I think law is very different from neuroscience in the sense that it differs from country to country, right?
Mm,
Neuroscience is a science; it's very consistent. So to that extent, I'm also quite excited, or at least curious, to see how law is in Malaysia, how the lawyers think, and how some of the areas in law that are more dominant. Because I think you and I had this conversation earlier in that a lot of times when people think of neurolaw, at least how it applies, they tend to really latch on to criminal law because possibly that's very a direct link, something that people are very familiar with. But
mm,
um, what makes neurolaw so exciting is that it really lends itself into so many different areas in law that you may not even think possible, like
mm.
employment law, um, even elderly law, because now we're having such a huge aging population, and it's even encroaching into areas that are emerging, for example, artificial intelligence.
Mm.
So I do think this conversation is going to be really interesting. And I hope your audience and network also feel that way, because a dialogue is really not great if there is no interchange. So I'm also looking forward to hearing what you and your network have to say as well.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to. We'll be on Facebook on Saturday at 11 a.m. And for those of you who want to listen more to Dr. Choi Sealing, whose background, of course, she's a neuroscientist. Log on. There'll be a flyer flying around with a QR code. Just scan a QR code and you can reach the Facebook page, or just follow the Facebook link, which comes together with the flyer. So, okay, Siling, I think you have really perked my curiosity. I'm trying to see whether it can be adapted to sports, for example, or definitely criminal matter, etc., etc. So
Mm-hmm.
I look forward to see you on Saturday then. Anything else?
Excellent.
Yeah.
Likewise. Thank
Okay.
you, Richard.
All right. See you then. Bye bye.